I blame rock and roll and the army for my cheating wife. You are thinking, sure, blame everything but yourself. While I am at it, why not blame minorities, various religious groups, the CIA, and alien telepaths? I am nuts, but I am not that nuts. What I was almost deaf. That is where music and the military come in. Puberty and rock and roll hit me simultaneously. I rocked as a guitarist and equipment tech. I could bore you with name-dropping, with Mesa Boogie this and Alembic that and whatever other gear. Big deal. It was loud. I played it and I fixed it. And it was loud. And I got plenty of attention from the opposite sex. And it was loud. It also was not a sustainable career. Events persuaded me at age 24 to enlist in the U.S. Army as a communications electronics technician. I already knew audio electronics. Military gear was no big thing. I was assigned to a combat unit with the slogan, "Field Artillery," means never having to say, "I missed." The rolling stock were 155mm self-propelled howitzers. These looked sort of like battle tanks, but with big guns. Real big, loud guns. Mostly I worked on gear in our motor pool's radio shop. But if stuff broke in the field, guess who made house calls? Yup, good old Dr. Sparks. Me. And if repairs were needed during a live fire, I was there, earplugs stuffed futilely into my ear holes while massive concussions shook me. Artillerymen, known as gun bunnies, have a well-deserved reputation for being peculiar, their brains shaken loose by shock. Did I stop listening to loud music while I hung around really big loud guns? Duh. Some good bands played at on and off post clubs, good loud bands. And I still enjoyed an active social life. One enlistment was enough, not just for me, but for the Army. I flunked the hearing portion of my pre-re-enlistment physical. Sayonara, mother flippers. Post-separation events persuaded me to set up shop in the quaint, cheap, trendy Sellwood neighborhood of Portland, Oregon. I leased a little 2-story building, shop space downstairs, apartment upstairs. Set up shop. I know what you are thinking. Oh ho, he does security electronics and surveillance cameras and stuff, and that's how he caught his wife cheating. Wrong. I just did normal electronics maintenance. Anything except loud sound systems. And I did not have a wife yet. I found a wife the easy way. I ran into her. No, not with a motor vehicle. We were each jogging on sidewalks in a storefront business area. We intersected at a blind corner. Maybe, if I was not half deaf, I might have heard her approaching footfalls. Maybe, maybe not. Pow! We collided hard at that corner. I helped the leggy blonde up from her unwanted sitting position on the sidewalk below the corner light post. Like me, she wore bright running gear from the nearby Columbia Sportswear outlet store. I'm really sorry, are you all right? I stammered. I was almost tongue-tied because she was stunningly beautiful. I mentioned here that I have had an active social life, and that is true, with many different women of varied ethnicities and attributes. But none compared to the vision of divine beauty dusting herself off before my very eyes. Shoulder high to my 6'4" frame, smoky blue eyes and a sharply smart oval face, more dazed than disturbed. A perfect physique that narrowed to a flat-bellied waist, generous enough hips, and taut runner's legs. And that golden halo of hair. Yeah, let me see. She twisted and stretched her divine body. Yeah. I seem to be intact and I don't feel bruised. I guess I just wasn't paying attention. Her Bluetooth earbuds had popped loose. She appraised me with those amazing eyes. She saw a tall, thin, square-head guy, his face adorned with wire-rimmed glasses, topped by an unruly black mop, probably gazing idiotically at her. How about you? Any damage? She took my arm and felt my pulse. I seem okay, I think. Are you a nurse? I asked, trying to regain my composure. No, I push numbers at an accountancy down the street, but I took first aid classes and I always like to check pulses. Yours is running sort of fast. Yes, my heart was racing, and not because I hurt. I tried to remain calm, I've got to calm a little. By the way, I'm Ben. Ben Kubelski. Hi, Ben. Glad to meet you, even this way. I'm Marva. Marva Ferris. You live or work around here?" Her voice was melodic and clear. "My shop's just around the corner. I live upstairs. Funny I haven't run into you before. I mean, no, I don't mean like this, but..." Her laughter was as musical as her body was glorious. "I know what you mean," Marva exclaimed. "I just transferred here from across town. I could have commuted from my old place in the Pearl District, but I moved in with some so-so roommates here so I can walk to work. I didn't expect to run into guys this way. Yeah, this has been an interesting meeting. Look, I've got to go open my shop now. My morning jog time is over," I said, reluctant to end our encounter. "And I've got to clean up and get to the office." She finished brushing herself off. "I hope I don't seem too pushy, but could I interest you in lunch later? There's good bistro food at the Oak Bottoms pub." I gestured at the building facade across the street. "I usually close up between 1 and 2. "One's a good time for me. Right over there?" "Sure, I'll meet you then," Marva agreed with a bright smile. She felt my pulse again. "A little slower. Good. Don't die before you buy me lunch, okay?" OBP had a noisy lunchtime crowd. Sandy, the waitress, was as sultry and snarky as always. She seated us between chatterers. Marva and I had to almost shout to be heard. "What? I can't hear you," I said, cupping my ear. I said, "Do you ever miss not being in the army anymore?" Marva repeated, raising her voice. "Oh, that. No, it wasn't bad, but I'm sure glad to be a civilian again." That was our first date. Our second date was that night, a fine, late happy hour feed down the road at Garibaldi's. Our third date was breakfast the next morning. Breakfast in bed. My bed. We shared a beautiful morning together, and Marva abandoned her so-so roommates and moved in with me at the end of the month. I proposed a month later. We wed before the end of summer. I should describe the good-sized apartment above my shop. The living room was in front alongside the kitchen dining room overlooking the street. The master bedroom and bath were in the back with a small grassy yard below. 2 smaller bedrooms and a shared bath faced the hallway off the stairs climbing from the street door. We designated one of the smaller bedrooms as the nursery for when we had kids. The other was a spare bedroom for infrequent guests or whatever. I stored special electronics under that spare bed and in that room's closet. Special means sensitive gear I just did not want to leave in the shop, gear I absolutely did not want to be stolen. Marva and I had a good life. The first year just seemed to whiz by. I know Marva was sometimes frustrated at my increasing deafness. She tired of having to yell at me to be heard. "What? I can't hear you!" I shook my head again. So did she. I said, too many of our conversations proceeded thus. The condition is called tinnitus, ringing in the ears. More than ringing, really. Do you remember those old cartoons with steam whistle factories exploding? That was about what I constantly heard. Oh, my aching head. I tried to improve. I tested various high-end hearing aids. None helped much. Marva continued yelling. Life was good otherwise. We settled into patterns. We would start our mornings together, eat breakfast, and go to work. Marva's office shifted lunchtime to straddle noon, from 11:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m., while I kept my 1 to 2 closing time to accommodate lunchtime walk-in customers, so we only lunched together on weekends. But after work, we dined nicely, often went out dancing, and returned home for quality time to drive us to sleep. Yes, life was good. One of my regular customers was a sound man for a punk club with atrocious acoustics and a screaming clientele. He passed me a tip. "Hey, Benny, your ears are still totally messed up, right?" Sam asked, leaning over the counter. "What? I can't hear you?" This was my common punchline now. I said, Sam raised his voice enough. "Well, I know this gal. She's a medical researcher, works with nerve damage, that kind of stuff. And she told me her group's got an experimental treatment that regrows nerves. They're looking for test subjects to try out the stuff. No injections, nothing invasive, But she says they put their lotion or potion or whatever on deaf rats' ears, and now they can hear again. So I thought maybe you might—" Yes, I was definitely interested. I visited the lab over several of my lunch hours. I did not tell Marva about this. I did not want to raise her hopes if there was a chance of failure. Guess what? It worked. The tinnitus decreased rapidly. My hearing tested as totally normal within a week of the first squirt of juice into my ear canals. The good news came on a Thursday. I did not tell Marva yet. I planned a celebration, a very quiet celebration, for Friday night. Dinner in an almost silent Zen eatery. We whispered back and forth. No more shouting. Friday morning passed as usual. A walk-in customer arrived a little before noon. As we discussed his problem, I noticed a squeaking noise from upstairs. It seemed to come from the spare bedroom area. I could not turn the client away to investigate immediately. He left a few minutes later and I switched on my spare room spy cam. "Hey," you might protest. "You said you don't do security electronics and surveillance cameras and that kind of stuff. You lied." "Not exactly. I do not focus on security gear. But I have lots of expensive equipment stored upstairs, and I have a little spy cam aimed to watch it, just in case. I almost never bothered to watch it because I was lazy and trusting. But I watched it now, and I saw. For the first time, I saw my incredibly gorgeous wife Marva being intimate with some dark-haired guy. That squeaking sound I heard, that was the song of the bouncing bed springs. I felt my blood pressure and pulse spike. I saw red. I heard a roaring in my ears, totally different than the old tinnitus, a roaring of rage. But I did not go nuts, not then. I switched on the spy cam's audio, and I heard. I heard Marva's enthusiastic reactions and dark hair's triumphant sounds. When they finished, they talked, and I heard. "He really is a moron," said the man, his voice smooth and confident. "Every morning and every night he thinks he's got you all to himself, and every noon I have you. What a sucker." "Yeah, Jimmy, we've had lots of fun these last few months," Marva replied, her voice casual and unconcerned. "All because he's frozen to his schedules and too deaf to hear anything. He just doesn't have a clue. Sure, I love him, but I love being with you more. I can't wait to see you again tomorrow." I heard more like that. So she had been cheating for months? And they are going to continue? I don't think so. Do you see why I blamed Amps and the Army for Marva cheating? If I was not so deaf, I would have heard her better. She would not have yelled at me so much. She would not have turned to Jimmy in frustration. I tried to convince myself of that, but she still cheated. I acted totally normal that evening, mostly deaf as usual. We dined nicely. We went out dancing. We came home and spent time together like any other night. We slept. We woke up together in the morning. Marva went to work. I went to work too, but in the spare bedroom. I thought the police might be curious, so I prepared the scene. Removing the Wi-Fi spy cam only took a minute. No evidence of surveillance remained. I carefully rubbed some wiring to wear through the insulation. Not a lot, just enough. I carefully positioned the wiring to sit accidentally against the bed springs and frame. I hooked the wiring to a high-power transformer appropriate to feed the room's gear. I made sure the gear was protected by quick-blow fuses. Yes, I wired the bed. And just before noon, the power went out in the shop and the block. But not before Marva and Jimmy had rocked and rolled on the bed and shorted out the wires and received 50 kilowatts of AC streaming through their bodies, nicely incapacitating them. Their agonized screams filtered down from upstairs. I cupped my hand to my ear and said quietly, "What? I can't hear you." I didn't actually want to kill them, just teach them a lesson they'd never forget. The setup was designed to deliver a powerful but non-lethal shock, enough to cause extreme pain and temporary paralysis. The circuit had been carefully calibrated with a current limiter. They wouldn't die, but they'd wish they had for a few minutes. As their screams subsided to whimpers, I calmly walked upstairs. I had already cut the power entirely, ensuring no further electricity would flow. When I opened the door, I found them both sprawled on the bed, clothes disheveled, hair standing on end, both conscious but unable to move properly. "Marva, Marva, Marva," I said, shaking my head slowly. "I've been deaf, but not blind, and as of yesterday, not deaf anymore either." Her eyes widened in shock and confusion as Jimmy groaned beside her. "What? How?" she stammered, her limbs still twitching from the shock. "Medical miracle," I said, tapping my ear. "Experimental treatment. I can hear everything now, including all the things you two just said about me." Jimmy tried to sit up but couldn't quite manage it. "Listen, man, we can explain—" "No need," I interrupted, my voice calm and controlled. "I heard your explanation already. He's a moron, wasn't it? What a sucker. I think I've got the gist." I walked to the window and gazed out for a moment, then turned back to them. "The police will be curious about the power outage. They'll find exposed wiring that accidentally came into contact with the bed frame. Such a terrible accident. You're both lucky to be alive. The doctor will say that." "Doctor?" Marva whispered, tears in her eyes. "Oh yes," I nodded. "You'll need medical attention. Nothing permanent, I made sure of that. But enough to remember this day. Enough to give me time." "Time for what?" Jimmy asked, his voice hoarse. I smiled thinly. "Time to disappear. By the time you're both released from the hospital, I'll be gone. So will all my equipment and all our joint accounts will be emptied. Call it the price of betrayal." Marva began to sob. "Ben, please, it wasn't what you think." "Really?" "Because I think it was exactly what I heard. Two people gleefully betraying someone who trusted them, planning to do it again and again. What did I miss?" The silence was heavy, broken only by the distant sound of sirens. "That'll be the fire department, responding to reports of smoke from an electrical fire," I said calmly. "They'll find you both. They'll get you help. And they'll discover the unfortunate wiring accident that could have killed you but mercifully didn't." I leaned in close to Marva. "You could have just asked for a divorce if you were so unhappy. I would have given you everything you wanted. Instead, you chose this." I straightened up. "I'll leave the front door unlocked for the emergency responders. Goodbye, Marva." As I walked out, I heard her call after me. "Ben, please don't go." I cupped my hand to my ear again, a bitter smile on my face. "What? I can't hear you." 6 months later, I was settled in Austin, Texas. The music scene there reminded me of my younger days, except I wore industrial-grade ear protection now. My new electronics repair shop was already developing a solid reputation, especially among the local musicians. The newspaper clipping from Portland sat framed on my wall, partly as a reminder, partly as protection. The headline read, "Bizarre Electrical Accident Injures Two. Husband Missing." The article detailed how an electronics technician's wife and her colleague had suffered non-fatal electrical injuries when faulty wiring in their home came into contact with a metal bed frame. Investigators ruled it an unfortunate accident, though they noted the husband's mysterious disappearance. The police spokesman was quoted saying they had no reason to suspect foul play, but wanted to locate the husband to ensure his safety. I knew they'd never connect Ben Kubelski from Portland with William Jackson in Austin. I'd been careful. New identity, new social security number. Amazing what you can arrange with the right contacts from your Army days. New look. I'd grown a beard, dyed my hair sandy brown, started wearing contacts, and put on 20 pounds of muscle at the gym. The bell above my shop door jingled, and I looked up to see a woman enter. She was petite, with dark curly hair and warm brown eyes. "Hi there," she said with a smile. "The music store down the street said you're the best at fixing vintage amps." "I do all right," I replied, returning her smile. "What can I help you with?" She placed an old Fender Bassman on the counter. "This belonged to my dad. I'm learning to play bass, and I'd love to use his amp, but it's been sitting in the attic for years." I nodded, already examining the classic piece. Good choice. These are built like tanks. I can probably have it humming again in a couple of days. That would be amazing, she beamed. I'm Elena, by the way. Elena Rodriguez. I just moved here from San Antonio. Bill Jackson, I replied, extending my hand. Welcome to Austin. Our hands touched, and I felt a slight spark, just static electricity, nothing like the current I'd used on Marva and Jimmy. Still, it made us both laugh. Sorry about that, I said. Hazard of the trade? No problem, Elena replied, her eyes lingering on mine a moment longer than necessary. So, do I leave my number or? That would be perfect, I said, sliding her a form to fill out. As she wrote, I noticed she wasn't wearing a ring. I also noticed she wrote her personal cell number under Best Contact rather than using the business line option. When she left, promising to check back in a few days, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. A sense of possibility. I wasn't ready to dive into anything serious, not yet. The wound was still healing. But it was nice to feel normal again, to have a conversation with an attractive woman without wondering what she was hiding. That evening, as I worked on Elena's amp, I thought about Marva. I wondered if she'd recovered fully, if she was still with Jimmy, if they ever talked about what happened. I wondered if she ever truly loved me at all. The thoughts didn't hurt as much as they once had. The rage had subsided to a dull ache, and even that was fading. I hadn't intended to almost kill them, despite what they might believe. I just wanted them to feel a fraction of the pain they'd caused me. The power surge had been calculated, painful, traumatic, but survivable. And in a way, they'd done me a favor. If I hadn't caught them, how many years would I have wasted on a marriage built on lies? How much more betrayal would I have unknowingly endured? I tested the amp, adjusting a few components and smiling as the warm tube sound filled my workshop. By the time Elena returned, it would be perfect, better than new. As I put my tools away, I glanced at the newspaper clipping again. That chapter of my life was closed now. Ben Kubelski was gone, and so was his faithless wife. Bill Jackson had a new life, a new beginning, and maybe, just maybe, better days ahead. I reached up and touched my ear, marveling again at the silence. No more tinnitus, no more ringing, no more missing parts of conversations. I could hear everything now. The hum of the refrigerator, the traffic outside, the neighbor's dog barking down the street. What a gift, I murmured to myself, to finally hear the world clearly. And for the first time in a long time, I smiled without bitterness. Life goes on. Sometimes it even gets better. The next day, Elena called to check on her amp's progress. We talked for 20 minutes about music and Austin, and eventually made plans for dinner that weekend. Just as friends, of course. Two newcomers to the city getting to know each other. When we hung up, I didn't cusp my hand to my ear. I didn't say, "What? I can't hear you." Instead, I heard every word. And that's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and drop a comment below. Your support helps the algorithm push my content further. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps me keep creating more stories for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.